All right. Can everybody hear me? I didn't test my microphone.
Yes.
Great. Welcome everybody to the February meeting of the Glendale Planning and Historic Preservation Commission. I will, as always, note for the record, ask Becky to note for the record that we have a quorum. Mr. Corus is absent, and that's a pre-excused absence. As before, as we always do, let's begin with a review of the minutes of our last meeting. Members of the commission, you've had a chance to review those. What is your pleasure?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Let's move on to our agenda. We have one old item of business, which is the application of John Iadichigo. I apologize if I'm butchering that name. 1045 Laurel for window replacements. David, is our applicant available?
They should be coming in now.
All right.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, very good. Welcome back, sir. We've all had a chance to review the materials that you submitted. I think it was just 1 or 3 extra pages that were submitted. Is that right, David?
I'll let the applicant chime in if I missed something here, but there were, the previous meeting, Planning Commission wanted more information on the measurements of the proposed new windows. The applicant did supply those to me in an email, which I provided to the commission over the weekend.
Okay.
So those measurements, and I could pull them up here on my screen if that would be preferred.
Why don't you do that just so it's in front of us? And I'll say also that Mr. Corus met with the applicant and Bob provided me with a bit of a report. He said that after meeting with the applicant there on Laurel, he had some additional details. Bob Corus did. The muntins will be 3/4 inches in width, and they will be simulated divided light windows. The muntins will be attached to the exterior and to the interior of the insulated panels. Bob also goes on to say that the sash of the new windows is very close to the same dimension of the existing windows. He says that the amount of glass should be very close in appearance to the existing, within a 1/2 inch in width and height of each opening. Bob explains that the existing windows have varying muntin widths, and the replacements, as long as they meet the specifications that I just described to you, will be an improvement. I see, David, from what you've provided, and I think this is an email from the applicant, sort of goes over what I've just described from Bob. And just as, in summary, as I understand it, the muntins, what we're calling here is the grids, the current or the old windows are 7/8 of an inch to 1 1/4 inch, whereas the new or proposed windows have a 7/8 inch muntins. That's slightly different from what Bob said at 3/4 of an inch. I don't know that that makes a big difference. I think the key is that they're all consistent in size. As far as I understand this email, once again, the rails of each window vary from 1 1/4 inch to 1 1/2 inch, whereas the rails for the new windows will be 1 1/4 inch. So, Mr. Iadichio, is that a fair summary of your discussions with Mr. Corus and your?
Yeah. Actually, he summarized it really well. And actually, I measured and he measured, and whether it's 7/8 or 3/4, it's tough. We both had tape measures, so kind of tough to measure those from the outside, but I think it's close enough, and I think he summarized it well.
Okay. One question I had in reviewing these materials, and the question came to my mind, is what you're still proposing, is that the window that we looked at last month, or are you proposing something new?
So what are you referring to, the window in the picture with the sample?
Yes. And that's what we looked at that's what we looked at last month.
Right. So it's a different window. So this is the colonial style, I guess, grids and rails. And I think that sample was something that just showed the construction of the windows, how they function. So it wasn't a true representation from the vendor on what I was putting in.
Okay.
So it won't look like that. It's basically what I'm saying.
Okay. Do you have any new materials for the windows that you are proposing this month? You know, above and beyond the description that I read and that you provided in the email.
No, I did show Bob the layout. Bob was saying as long as these dimensions are in the contract. And so in the brochure that they have, there is, I mean, I do have pictures of it, so that's as much as I can share, I guess.
All right. You didn't submit those to the village. That's my point. I haven't seen it. I don't know if others in the commission have seen it.
Well, Bob has seen them.
Okay.
I shared it with
All
Bob
right,
when he was here.
Well, members of the commission, do you have anything that you'd like to add? Any questions of the applicant?
He lifted up on his screen so he can see it now, his brochure.
Got a hard copy of it. How do you want me to show it to you?
Well, you have a camera that you could turn to the document. If you have a PDF, I think David could give you the rights to share your screen.
Okay.
And beyond that too, a third alternative, sir, if you have a name of the product and the manufacturer, perhaps David could find it online or somebody could and share it by way of screen. I know Randy's been very good at doing that in the past.
All right. So are you guys seeing me on the screen?
We are not.
No, John, you're in such a way that they can only hear you speaking. To add the share screen functionality would create some hiccups in our Zoom ability.
Right.
Is there a keyword or phrase that I might be able to look up that I could use as an example?
So the manufacturer is Alside, ALSIDE. And if you look, I haven't been to their website in a while, so I'll do this from memory. But if you go to their decorative options section, you'll see the grid options, and that's what folks are concerned with, right?
ALLSI.
No, it's
One
just
L.
one L.
One L.
ALSIDE.
All right.
And if you look at the grid patterns and grid options, it's the colonial style, which is the 7/8 inch grids, and then the 1 1/4 inch rails.
David, I'm looking on my second screen while he's talking. I'm not having any luck. I don't know if you are, David. Doesn't seem to be a search function on Allside's website.
I'm furiously searching. I have a Windows style guide that I'm opening up right now, so hopefully that will point me in the right. I'm sorry, John, I'm not seeing exactly what.
Yeah, so I'm looking at. I've got a hard copy of the brochure, and that's what I'm looking at. And I'm
Okay.
trying to describe it to you. So,
Hey, David,
Yeah.
would we be, I've got an option to promote him to a panelist. Would he be able to share his screen then?
I'm not sure. Would he as a panelist?
And then after
I can promote. I think as co-host, I think I can promote him. Let's see if that will work.
I've got it up on my.
So John will be
internet.
rejoining the meeting here as a panelist, and I'll walk
David,
him through.
I've got the screen up here. Do you want me to send you the link?
Yeah, let's see. I'm looking. Yeah, actually, Becky, if you have it up, down on the bottom corner, you'll see Oh, I think I have it here, actually. John, can you hear me? I think I lost John.
Looks like he's on mute.
Yeah, he's just on mute, it looks like.
I'm off mute. Yeah, I don't know how I got on mute, but I'm off.
Can you see my screen here?
Yep.
Is this what you're referring to right here?
Yes. So that's it right there.
Okay.
So is there an example that shows that more zoomed in so we can see what the profile, if there's anything to it, or if it's just flat?
The heading above it says it's interior grid.
So the one I'm getting is going to have the grid on the outside and a matching one on the inside.
Okay, good. But it looks very flat in that picture.
So John, down here, I see where it has classic and contoured. My understanding is, and it's sort of hard to tell in this photo, but this photo appears to be the contour. You can see a little bit of a ridge in the middle. Is that what you're proposing, or would it be the flat?
Yeah, so ours would have the contour, it wouldn't just be the flat grid.
Okay.
The contour just like the existing ones I have today.
Bear with me here, folks. I'm going to try to see if I can find a close up image.
Are these the Sheffield,
Go ahead.
or what style? Because I'm on the All Sides website as well, just trying to search for more information as you guys are also. Is this what window type? It says the options are Sheffield, Ultra Max, Mezzo, Fusion, Model 0700, Sheffield 2. Is there a specific?
Yeah, so the brochure I have, it's in the Ultra Max brochure.
Yep.
While David is searching,
Mhm.
any other questions, comments, members of the commission?
Yeah, I've found this by going under the Ultramax and looking at it. And it does have the colonial design grids, and it has simulated divided lights with small individual separated by buttons and mounted in a frame. So I think with those two options, from my perspective, this would meet our requirements.
Yeah, it sounds like it lends itself to a very detailed motion. I suppose if, even reference to the make and the model and the details around the muttons and even the width of the muttons. Randy, if you want to make a motion along those lines, that I think will help in our discussion.
Okay, I would like to make a motion that we approve the installation of Ultramax vinyl replacement insert windows with simulated divided lights, which means that there are grids on the outside of each side of the pane and within with the contour profile.
All right, and at the widths specified by the applicant in the supplemental materials?
Correct. 7/8 inch for the muttons and
1 1/4
inches for the rails.
All right. Just to be clear too, Randy, if you wouldn't mind making sure, or Becky making sure that in addition to Ultramax being the style, having the manufacturer name Allside attached to that motion. I don't know if other manufacturers have an Ultramax product, but better safe than sorry. All right, we have a motion and a second. Oh, no, I haven't heard a second.
I'll second the motion.
All right, motion, second. Any further discussion, members of the commission? Any questions of the applicant? You understand our motion?
Yeah, so as long as we follow the what we've outlined here, it is approved. So what else do you need from me, I guess, is the next question.
Well, right now, we haven't voted, so it hasn't been approved yet, but there's a motion and a second.
Okay. All right.
The reason I called on you is to see if you had anything to add to the discussion, any other comments, make sure that you understood the motion. It sounds like you do. So if the motion is approved, then it gives you the direction you need to go back to the village office for building permit. And that's perfunctory. You don't have to come back to us for building permit. All right. Seeing anything else then, sir? All right. Let's go on to our vote. We have a motion and a second to approve based on the criteria that was set forth in the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, sir. Once again, please be in touch with David and with Wally, and they'll set you forth with what you need on the building permit.
Great. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Very good. Let's move on to the application of 975 Willow Avenue, the application of Bradley Higginbotham for a conditional use for a pool. And that also includes appropriateness review of the pool with and a fence that's a part of the application. David, could you promote Mr. Higginbotham to a speaker status? There he is. All right. Before the applicant describes his application, I should point out that this application was actually a variance was approved for this application because the location of the pool is actually in the side yard. Our zoning code requires that pools be in the rear yard only. But the Board of Zoning Appeals found that based on special circumstances, specifically the shallowness of the rear yard, that it was appropriate to grant a variance to allow the construction of this pool in essentially their side yard. So that's by way of an introduction. We are reviewing a conditional use for the pool, and that, as you all are familiar, that conditional use is simply a recommendation that will go to the council. I think, David, am I correct? This is actually on the council's agenda for tonight as well, correct?
It is, yeah.
Okay. All right. Mr. Higginbotham, we've all had a chance to look at your application materials. You can say as little or as much as you want, and then we'll take it from there. You're on mute, sir. Mr. Higginbotham, you're still on mute.
All you have to do is hit your space bar and hold it down.
David, do you know any other tricks to get Mr. Higginbotham off the mute? Are you able to do it as the administrator?
I'm trying the one I know.
All right. Well, that's a first. I've never seen this as a technical issue before. Nope, he's dropped off. Did he drop off or did you?
I promoted him to a panelist to see if that will help us.
Okay. Mr. Higginbotham, you're still on mute. I don't know if.
Are you there? Can you hear me?
There we go. Very good. Now we can hear you. Can't see you, but we can hear you. All right.
Okay.
You heard me, didn't you? By way of introduction, the floor is yours to describe your application and we'll take it from there.
All right. So you guys can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. It's pretty straightforward what I've submitted. Townscapes did a pretty good job. We went back and forth with multiple designs till we finally settled on one. We're going to be using Cincy Pools as our actual pool installer. The pool itself is 16 by 40 feet. It's going to be a fiberglass pool. How it's going to be kind of situated is pretty close to our garage. And I think I sent some measurements over for David. It's going to be 52 feet from the pool to the actual property line, which is part of the Cincinnati electric, or let's say phone line company back there.
Yeah, Cincinnati Bell.
Yeah, Cincinnati Bell, yeah. So anyway, other than the design layout, there's not much else that I can tell you. The fencing is going to be done by Eads Fencing, and it's going to be standard fencing for a pool as well. So 4 feet high. It's going to be metal. It's going to be probably a little bit nicer design aspect than the basic fencing that we're going to do on part of the property, on the other side of the property. But ultimately, it's pretty simple. We're going to keep the aesthetic portion of the pool. We want to keep it looking like it's been there for 100 years. So I know some pools have been approved that I've seen in the historical district where they're kind of elevated higher. And you can tell they're fairly new. We want to keep it kind of flush to the ground. So the portico shays right there, it's going to look like that it's been there for 30, 40 years is what we're going for.
All right. Very good. Question about the fence. There's actually two fences. There's a fence around the pool and then a fence along your southern property line. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Are they the same fence, style, height, and so forth, the fence?
Yes.
Okay. And you're not enclosing the entirety of your yard in the fence, just the southern boundary. Is that correct?
We're part of our yard is enclosed already, but that's one area that we submitted all this at once, and we've had multiple dogs run through. We've had people in our yard. So we're just closing it off, that portion of the yard in this phase of the next construction with the pool.
All right. All right. Others, members of the commission?
I'd asked for drawings, and thanks, David, for sending those over a little while earlier this afternoon. That answered all my questions. The placement is sufficiently distant from the like the telephone company and the backyard of the other house on Sharon Road next to the telephone company to satisfy me. So it looks fine to me.
I have a question about the landscape treatment, which doesn't, I think, bear on the historic district guidelines, but it looks like if you go north from your porte cochere, you head into a seating area, a semicircular seating area is aligned with your porte cochere.
Yes.
So
correct.
what pathway will you be taking from your porte cochere, your side entrance, to the pool? Will there be some additional walkway?
Yeah, so if you look towards the garage, that's where it's going to be, the entrance is going to be right there by the garage and come down. So there's not going to be an actual entrance to the sitting area from there. You're going to only come in one entrance.
Okay.
David, do you have that drawing, that layout you just to share that shows that?
Yeah, I didn't see it on there, but
I just saw it this afternoon on an email. So
Give me 1 second.
So I'm
using
just wondering
two-
if there's going to be a concrete paved walkway or something there.
Here we go.
David, we can't see anything.
So on this drawing, there doesn't seem to be any connection between the pool and the porte cochere.
The pool is, that whole area is sitting right on the portico chair. So right there, that's going to be part of the property where the fence comes right there with it. So it's not going to be, it's going to be connected all in. So there's not going to be a walkway to the sitting area that you're referencing. It's just, you have to have access to the pool to get to the sitting area.
Okay, I don't know if we're using different terminology. You have an old garage, right?
I have the garage that's, so if you look
Yeah.
at the pool, do you have the drawing in front of you, the renderings?
Yeah,
Okay, so-
there's an old garage and the pool is aligned with the old garage,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. And in this drawing, we can see at the top is the edge of the porte cochere. And so you'll either just walk across the lawn.
No, so
Um,
it's a
see, it
circle.
exists. Excuse me,
circle
that
drive.
exists.
Yeah, go ahead.
Existing driveway, is that what you'd walk on?
Yes, so it's an existing driveway, 3-car garage. So we're going to be walking across the driveway to the entrance at the top of the garage to our pool area.
See where that vertical, I don't know if David, you could put your cursor where that vertical existing driveway text is there. So this is the pathway you'd be walking down.
Okay. All right. Okay,
get
I
there.
understand now. Thank you very much.
Right where it says fence near the 104.7 is what I assume where the gate will be.
Right.
And just so I'm understanding the graphic correctly, to get up to, or to get to the pool, no matter what, you have to go up 2 steps to get to the pool, correct?
No, there's no steps. You're going to be stepping down to the pool.
Okay, so there are 2 steps down to the
Yes.
pool.
Right.
Inside the pool, right?
No, there's 2 steps down to.
Oh, right.
Okay.
And then there's going to be steps all the way across from side to side inside the pool.
And is the
Yeah.
pavement, is it going to be concrete or?
It's going to be a stamped concrete to kind of tie in with the colors of the house as well. It's going to be very light. And then we're proposing doing a limestone border around for the coping of the pool as well. That would tie in with the limestone of the house.
Okay, I think, Tom, maybe you could refresh our memory about the conditions for a conditional use, but I think they are what? Traffic, impact on the neighborhood, and
I think consistency with a plan.
consistent with the plan, right?
Yeah, I'm looking as we speak, but those seem to be the ones.
Those are correct. It is traffic, effect on neighborhood, and consistency with village plan.
So the only one that's really relevant here is the impact or effect on the neighborhood, and are the neighbors aware and supportive of this application?
Yes, the neighbors directly behind were actually on the call when the variance was approved. They were the closest one to the property line, and they were fully approved.
On that, yeah, Beth, on that point, and in confirming what he just said, Bruce and Eunice Abel appeared at the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting last month and spoke in favor of this application. They are, I don't know if you know where they live. It's Laurel, I think. So it's to the west of this property, and they're buffered by the garage from the pool. So in any event, they were very complimentary and very much in favor of this. And nobody on Sharon, including the Cincinnati Bell property, they did not appear at the zoning hearing.
On the topic of neighbors, I will, excuse me, I will point out that we do have one. Mr. Garry Terrell is here to, he's raising his hand to speak. So I don't know, Tom, when you want to give him the opportunity to do so. But
let's make sure the applicant is done with his presentation, and then we'll take comments from others. So, Mr. Higginbotham, did you have anything else to add?
No, I'm all done. Thanks.
Okay. Well, let's get Garry Terrell on the line, and then of course we'll have if we have any questions, he'll be available, and then we'll take it from there.
Hi, can you hear me now?
We can, Garry. Welcome.
Hi. Actually, the question I had for Brad, and Brad, this is Garry Terrell. Becky and I live sort of on the side of your property. We share the fence line. I know we're talking about the pool, but is this application also talking about the entire fence line that you're planning on putting out, or is that for a different meeting?
We're talking about the entire fence line as well.
Okay. The question I had for you, Brad, you know, we've talked about this sort of informally in the yard, is that along our fence line, and by the way, we're fully in agreement of putting a new fence up. That's great. It'll give us a reason to tear our old fence down. But I just know that on that fence line, if we look at the property line, there's several mature trees. And I'm curious and concerned about, are you going to make sure that those trees stay there and you're just going to move the fence line, or are you going to remove those trees in order to maintain the boundary of the property line with your fence?
Oh, no, Garry, per our conversation that we had before, I was in complete agreement to keeping the trees there. I'm okay with bumping it out a number of feet to maintain the trees and also keep good neighbors, of course.
Yeah, perfect. I just didn't want to tear the trees out.
Most definitely.
So that was all I had. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
All right. Thank you, Garry. Yeah, on that point, Mr. Higginbotham, I don't know what effect that would have on the entire line of the fence. You know, if it means bumping out the fence a foot or 2 foot away for the entire length of that stretch of fence, you know, I would suggest you talk to the other neighbors just as a neighborly courtesy.
For sure.
All right. Members of the commission, any further questions, comments, motions?
Very attractive design, and the fence is very appropriate, and I move approval.
I had a real quick question though. This is Dan Mason. Real quick question.
Yeah, sure.
On the layout for the pool, I don't see where it calls out where the pool equipment is.
You know, the pool equipment's going to be at the back of the garage. So typically they want to have it within 40 feet of the pool. So we're going to just put it behind the garage. And it's all shielded from the Ehlers as well. They're the only ones that would actually have any viewing of it.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Sure.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, and that motion includes a recommendation to council for the pool, since this is not, we don't have the authority to approve the pool, it's a conditional use, but we do have the appropriateness review. All right, a motion, a second, any further discussion? Oh, David, I meant to ask, is there anybody else that wanted to speak from the audience?
Nope. Let me double check, but I don't see any other attendees raising their hands. So,
all right, very good. Well, let's take a vote on the motion. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Higginbotham. You know the next step is to log back on at 7 o'clock for the council meeting.
Okay, thanks so much.
Very good. Let's move on to the next request for appropriateness. It's the request of the Village of Glendale for a park picnic shelter with tables at Cleveland Park. David, are you acting as the applicant?
I am. I'm going to be sharing duties with Mr.
well,
Max
David,
Ehlers, who is.
David, hold on, David. I'm sorry, I skipped over an application. The deck on Erie Avenue.
Oh.
That's my bad. I apologize.
Oh, we did, didn't we?
Yeah, let's go to what should be the second application. That's request of Julie Stabens for a replacement deck at 36 Erie Avenue. Could you promote Ms. Stabens?
Yes.
I see
Give me
Denny
one
Dellinger.
second
Is that
here.
Can you hear me?
That was a mistake. Excuse me. Or
can you hear us?
yeah,
I can hear somebody.
You.
Oh, can you hear me? It's Julie and Greg.
Very good. Yes.
Hi there. Yeah, I was nervous. We were getting skipped over.
No, that's my poor eyesight. I apologize.
That's okay. That's okay. So we're here.
All right. Well, once again, we've all had a chance to review your application. I must say it was a very full and complete application. So
thank you.
We'll let you say as much or as little as you want, and we'll take it from there.
Okay. So what we are planning to do is remove an old existing deck from the back of the house and replace it with, basically it's the same shape, just a little bit longer, a little bit deeper, I guess. And then the stairs will move to just go straight out on the side, just to almost to the driveway. But that's it.
And what kind of materials would you explain those to us?
So it'll be all pressure treated wood for the framing and the footers. And then the deck surface itself is a composite material from a company called Decorators. I sent a picture, I think to David, of the kind of that's the color of it. And you can see the material. It's a wood look composite material, but obviously, holds up a lot better with weather.
As far as the rails,
rails will be a black aluminum rail. The deck color is the top picture, the gray picture.
Okay. Will the rails be similar to the picture we're looking at now on the screen?
Yes, they should be similar to I think kind of in the top picture as well.
Wooden posts or composite posts with
I think they're composite posts, composite.
And then the railing, the individual spindles for the railing, and a cap of some sort, a railing on top of that, if you will.
Yes. I don't know if does he have the description?
Yeah, it has a name brand.
It's hang on, I can tell you the brand of the railing too. I have it written down. Greg, you have isn't it over there? Our contractor's on, but he's not probably able to talk. Hang on one second. It's Key Link American Series railing in black. It's just a square shaped spindles and not a real, it's got a flat top, but it's not real wide.
Julie, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is John.
There's John.
Mr. McCann.
That's our contractor.
Okay.
This is John with McCann Custom Remodeling. Just to correct a couple things. It's the Key Link American Series aluminum railing. So the posts are aluminum, caps are aluminum, bases are aluminum, everything is aluminum and it's black. And it doesn't look like the top picture. The bottom actually sits about 2.5 inches up off of the deck. And it's a 3 foot high to meet code.
Okay. All right. Anything else from the applicants?
Nope.
All right. Fair enough. Members of the commission?
This is Randy Green. It looks beautiful. So a good job on the design. One question, does the proposal include joist tape on all the joists?
That's a John question.
No. It gets aluminum Z flashing all around the house where the ledger board is, but we don't tape the top of joists.
That's up to it's just a suggestion that's between you and the homeowner, because that's just something to make certain that the joists don't rot over time.
Well, this is number one pressure treated wood.
I just helped a friend replace a deck, which was pressure treated wood, 15 years old.
Wow.
Remember, the joist had rotted.
Well, we're open to having that conversation with John if it would help to, keep it from rotting. Absolutely.
Other than that, I have no questions. I think it's a beautiful design and looks very functional.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else on the commission? Is there a motion?
I will move to approve as submitted.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Yeah. Go
All
ahead.
right. David, I should have asked, is there anybody else in the queue wanted to speak on this application?
No.
All right. We have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. Well, congratulations, Ms. Stevens. If you would work with David on your next steps, I believe permit would be in order.
Okay, we will do that.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks.
All right, David, now you're in the hot seat. It's a request of the Village of Glendale for a park shelter at Cleveland Park.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am going to share my screen here, give folks an idea of what we're talking about. So I'm going to be asking Max here to chime in as well. But as you may or may not be aware, as a result of the coronavirus funding from Hamilton County, the village has secured about $100,000 towards improvements to Cleveland Park, including the construction of new playground equipment, which the commission will see once we have a formal proposal from a contractor here, hopefully by March. But the first portion of this is the construction of a picnic shelter, about 240 square feet in Cleveland Park. It'll be approximately located. Let me zoom out here so that it isn't gigantic. This is the proposed design that was put out to bid. So as you can see, the shelter will be located more or less in this area.
David, we can't see anything. You're not sharing your screen.
I'm just talking like you can see. So as you can see now, this is the proposed concept drawing. This was what was put out to bid to contractors. And up here is the anticipated location for this 240 square foot shed. I'll zoom back up. Now, this is a presentation that was forwarded to the village from Mr. Max Ehlers, who is completing this work as part of his picnic shelter, or part of his Eagle Scout project. So I will turn it over to Max to give us a little bit more information about what he's proposing and how he'll go about getting this installed in our park with Planning Commission's blessing. Max?
Yep. Thank you. So as Mr. Lumsden said before, it'll be a 12-foot by 20-foot shelter. It'll be 9 feet until the trusses start on the roof, and it has two 8-foot long picnic tables, and it'll all be made out of pre-treated lumber. The roof instead will be painted green sheet metal instead of the wood as it's seen in these plans. And also in the plans, it has a railing there, but there will be no railing.
Will you be making the shelter, Mr. Ehlers?
Yes. Me and volunteers from family and my Boy Scout troop.
All right. Will you also be making the picnic tables?
Yes.
All right. David, is the funding for this shelter, is that a part of the grant that you described?
It is not. Mr. Ehlers is graciously donating the time and materials as part of the Eagle Scout project to the village for the construction of this, which will add a necessary park shelter to a soon to be improved park. So thank you to Mr. Ehlers for putting the time and money and energy into this.
Very good. I did have one other question, Mr. Ehlers, and if you touched upon it, please excuse me, but the floor of the shelter, is that going to be poured concrete, bricks?
Yes.
Could you describe that?
It'll be poured concrete.
Okay. It looks, from the picture, it looks like it might be even stamped concrete, but that might be my poor eyesight.
Yeah, I'm sorry. On the picture, it does have, I think it may be like stone and bricks, but it'll be poured concrete.
Okay. All right. Members of the commission?
I have a question. This is Leslie, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, very good. Thanks.
Forgive me, I'm trying to understand the process. Have the plans for the playground equipment been approved?
My understanding is they have not. David, you can fill us in on that.
So as part of this project, the village worked with its engineer, the Kleinger's Group, to draw up a conceptual plan for playground equipment. So very far from final. We used that conceptual plan to put the project out to bid. Once the village has selected the bidder, we will have a final plan put together with that contractor that will then be presented to the planning commission. So that will be coming here, if all goes well, in March, if not in April. So we will address that later on in the year once the village has the final design plans for the playground equipment.
Well, and again, I'm still learning, but isn't it a little premature to approve the shelter if the playground equipment has not been approved at this time?
I think that's a legitimate question, Leslie. One way I would think of is we will be reviewing the playground equipment, we as the planning commission, for appropriateness. So, if we approve the shelter, the equipment then would have to be in an appropriate fashion or in an appropriate design consistent with the shelter. But
so if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
Sure. And that is a very good question, Leslie. Because these are in theory two different projects, because they are coming from two different funding sources, two different contractors, that the approval for this structure, this shelter tonight, does not rely on any of the design approvals for the playground equipment. So while saying that construction on this shelter won't begin until the plans have been finalized as received from bidders to the village for the playground equipment. So we've put in this, as you can see here on the plans, this 240 square foot shelter, but the exact location and layout of the playground is determined too by the bid requests, or by the bids we receive later on in February.
David,
so it would be two separate projects.
Oh, excuse me. Could you show on the drawing where the alley is? I'm not clear.
So it's hard. I don't want to zoom out too much and lose too much detail, but down here is Cleveland Avenue.
Okay.
And then up here is Camp Street, the alley. Okay. So here's the existing basketball court, and
where would Troy be?
Just south of that. Troy is out here. I'm not sure exactly how many lots it is over, but
okay. David, Tom, as I understand it, the shelter that we're talking about would be almost directly behind the dog depot and the barber shop, which is on Troy.
Okay. I've got it. Thanks.
Well, I think the design of the picnic shelter is, it's very basic, very handsome, appropriate. I applaud Max and his Boy Scouts and the adults involved in it, for their initiative. on this drawing, it does look like kind of an afterthought. My only question about it is the location. It looks like the park was designed and then let's do a shelter and stick it there.
Well, the design of this park process, the design of this proposed concept for the park came after the village realized funding was available from Hamilton County for an improvement to one of our park spaces due to the CARES Act. So this shelter and the park concept actually hit the village at just about the same time, if not the park beating out the shelter a little bit. So it was an unanticipated addition to the Cleveland Park, but ultimately we feel a beneficial addition to Cleveland Park. So when we worked with our engineer to come up with a conceptual plan, they weren't aware of the details of Max's construction, except for the square footage of the proposed square footage of the shelter. So they've set aside a small portion of the park space and the park improvement to give it a spot to go.
Though I like the idea of the shelter and the design of the shelter, I think it's too premature to approve it at this time.
David, can you speak to the timing once again of when we might be reviewing the playground equipment and the overall design of the park? I mean,
Sure.
If we're just talking about if that's coming up next month, for example, and it would make sense to put off the review of this shelter for a month to review it all together.
Well, there's the potential that it will be coming up this month. I don't know if folks can see the calendar that I just pulled up here,
yeah.
But the 19th of February is when the village is anticipating to receive bids. So, you know, I said March, but it's probably unlikely that we'll have anything finalized for presentation in time for that March meeting. I can certainly hope so, but it depends on the bids we receive and the feedback we receive from our engineer on the quality and price of those bids. So more than likely it'll be in the April meeting when we actually present this to the Planning Commission for review of the playground equipment.
When was start of construction conceptually? When do you think start of construction will be when this gets approved?
Assuming weather holds up, and I think we'll start pouring of concrete and construction some springtime.
Okay, so it's not urgent to do it within the next month.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
This is Dan Mason. 2 questions. Max, when are you needing to finish your project by in order to achieve Eagle?
So there's no specific time I have to finish this project by to achieve Eagle, because I am I'm 15 right now. Sorry, I had my birthday a couple days ago, but I was planning on getting Eagle done earlier, just so that in high school I don't have to worry later about having to get it done.
Okay, I was just curious if that had any influence on the timing. So thank you for clarifying that. And then second of all, as I recall from looking from images on Google, to the left of the shelter, the proposed location, is a long line of mature trees, correct?
Yes, I think so.
So just the maintenance, and just a question, has any thought been put towards the maintenance of the metal for standing wet leaves and the maintenance required to continually or get them off there so it doesn't affect the metal? Just a random question.
So for the roof, we did consider putting shingles or wood roofing on, but I decided that it'd be easier for the village for maintenance if it was metal, since it would be the longest lasting, and it could also go with the kind of theme of the village.
No, that's fine. I think it's a great choice. I just didn't know if there was any thought given to putting the shelter on the opposite side of the court kind of in the open space, not in necessarily the space for additional equipment or play equipment, but just on the other side of the court where it wasn't going to collect as many leaves. Just curious. I think that kind of goes back to Leslie's just for the overall design.
If I may, and if I may make a suggestion to the Planning Commission, the proposal of the shelter might be considered proposal of the structure as it's drawn on for Max to take the next step to proceed with procuring materials and the park space is something that will come with Planning Commission's review of the village's bid and equipment approval. So perhaps the approval of the park shelter would be dependent on the village's bid process and what's received from bidders in late February.
So
David,
you're saying you think we could approve the design concept, the design, so he could go forward with procurement of materials, but he'd have to come back for final placement approval pending the village's final design. Something like that kind of a motion work?
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. So if just the plans for the shelter are approved, that way I can start fundraising and planning for materials and such.
I think we ought to go down that path if nobody really strongly objects, because the design is good and it'll look nice in the park. It's just where it physically goes is subject to the final design by the village's contractor.
And engineer.
And engineer. And as far as leaves on the roof, you're not putting any gutters on that roof, so they would slide right off eventually, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Well, when it comes time, I'll make that motion, but I'll wait to see if there's any other discussion.
David, is there anybody in the waiting room wanting to address this application?
None that I can see.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion, members of the commission?
Just like to say thank you to Max and his family and the Boy Scouts for what I think will be a terrific add to the park. And I concur with the plan to separately approve the design from the placement.
It sounds like a second.
It is.
All right, thank you.
All right. So we have a motion to approve the design, review the location later, and a second. Any further discussion, members of the commission? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Well, congratulations, Max. You can take it to the next level, but stay tuned because we'll have you revisit us when it comes time to choose the final location.
All right. Thank you,
sir. Thank you. All right. Well, that concludes our new business. We do have one item under persons who are wishing to address the commission, and that would be Tom Kerr for discussion of his work and his analysis of the driveway situation, the driveway setbacks in particular. Thomas?
All right. I sent out a crude drawing just to spark discussion, but just some top lines. When the 5-foot setback was put in place for driveways, it was kind of a one size fits all in a village where one size doesn't fit all. And it seems that on some lots that are thinner or have their houses placed closer to the property line, we almost have set up on smaller homes and smaller lots. We basically outlawed you having access to your backyard via a paved drive. So what I like to talk about is thinking conceptually if there's something we could do to take away the one size fits all and have it some kind of adjustable ordinance for small homes in certain areas where it's common. For example, on the first one on the A lot, the 7-foot setback drawing under A there, the houses, the one we in particular up on Congress that we denied a driveway because their home only had 7 feet between the driveway and the house, wasn't enough to have the 5-foot setback plus a paved drive to the backyard where he wanted to be able to store things. We didn't, the ordinance came into being, then we had to deny his application based on the ordinance, but he never pursued it via appeal. When in the homes to both sides of him are small homes on thin lots, and they have concrete drives going to their backyard for access. So that's one thing. Then the second drawing shows the 10-foot setback, and during the research, I see current day drives seem to be an average of 10-foot wide to 12-foot wide, with 10-foot being a minimum. And that's basically so that if you're driving down your driveway, you can get out on the pavement. And thinner driveways are basically just simply access back to a larger apron in the back where when you get out of the car, you could get out onto pavement. So I drew example B is simply a 10-foot driveway filling up the gap from the property line to the house. And again, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's just an example of the way our ordinance would not allow that. And then in the C drawing, I took the same 10-foot driveway where you had a 15-foot setback to a house, and I just split the difference down the middle. I could have put it flush to the house and maintain that 5-foot setback we do now. But if you have the drive, that would be a little tight. So additionally, as I was looking into driveways and how they came to be, in the old days, drives were basically wagons, trails to the back barn where you put your wagons in the back of the home. And they developed ruts where the wagon wheels rolled. And then when automobiles came around in the teens, 20s, and 30s, this ribbon driveway, which a ribbon is defined as 2 strips with grass in the middle, which I happen to have at the house I live in now. Basically, how that came about, when automobiles came, they didn't want to drive through the mud ruts. So they simply just put concrete or in the ruts and made 2 ribbons. And that's how that evolved. And then over time, they started filling in the concrete to make a solid driveway, which from a carpenter's perspective, concrete form carpenter, it's easier to put 2 forms, one on each side of a drive than to put 4 sets of forms for the 2 strips. So I'm assuming that's why that came about, but I don't know that for sure. So conceptually, I wanted to just plant the seed and talk about if there's anything we could do, and this is going to be on an individual basis, to tweak the ordinance to allow for our discretion and perhaps, in some of the historic ordinances I've seen around the country allow for, they designate a 8-foot minimum drive for historic districts and a maximum of 10 foot. And they utilize it as simply an access to the backyard. So I'm thinking if we could tweak this to allow for perhaps even on thin ones, like in example A, where you don't really have any space to get to your access to your own backyard with a paved driveway, perhaps we could come up with a ribbon plan for that small space, even though it would have to be on the property line because there's physically not enough space not to do that. And then in the second example, B example, perhaps if we stuck with this ribbon plan on thin driveways, you could have a little bit of gap. It wouldn't have to be 10 foot wide. For example, my ribbon driveway is only 7 foot 2 inches wide, and it's used as an access road to the back area, parking area, which is an apron where when you get out. So we don't really get in and out of the car on the ribbon driveway that much. So that's the pitch, and I was hoping people might be interested or consider supporting revising this ordinance. This is part of our January, annual review of ordinances that I've been thinking about for a couple of years. So that was it for today. If there is any interest in doing it, we could look into coming up with more specific language for next month to talk about it, and then make a recommendation to change that ordinance. That's it. Any other comments from others? I'd like to hear your perspective.
Well,
Go ahead, Beth.
Oh, I was just going to say, I appreciate the research that you did, Tom, because there's no substitute for actually looking at the conditions in a given area. And I think that the zoning should fit the historic pattern in the village rather than forcing the village to fit an arbitrary zoning standard that isn't consistent with the historic pattern. So I appreciate what you've done here, and I like the idea of a ribbon driveway for a couple of reasons. I mean, one, it gives the visual effect of a greater setback, and there's more permeable area, and so it's good on those two counts. And I think you suggested a maximum width of a driveway. I mean, you said 8 feet.
The ones I heard, some of them in some historic districts, 8 foot was the maximum they would allow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm not sure that a driveway needs to be as wide as the one shown in C.
No, all these are 10 foot. Well, B and C are 10 foot wide to scale, but yeah, I agree. And especially if you don't have enough room to get the 5 foot setback and still have enough room for a driveway and some space to your house, you're really using it for an access to a back area apron anyway.
So
go ahead.
I would support, discussing this in the committee, in committee. Let's just put it that way.
Okay. Well, I was a committee of myself, up until today. So,
well, Tom, you're vice chair. You can appoint your own committee.
All right, Beth, you're on it. Anybody else want to speak?
If you speak, you're on the committee?
Not necessarily. No.
Well, first, Tom, thank you for all your work. I support what both you have said and Beth has said. This may be as simple as, if you don't have, and we can pick the number, if you have less than 13 feet, which would be an 8 foot driveway plus a 5 foot setback, then these are the options. You have to do a ribbon, or you can't do a driveway more than this wide, but to make this simpler, conceptually, this was a real good way to look at it, but that may be the way to approach it from a planning standpoint and putting it into the planning document.
That's good. And I kind of thought that when I put these driveways, you notice they're all centered on the available space. And the concept of if you centered it, but you only allow for an 8 foot driveway, except of course in the 7 foot setback, you would have to be on the property line. But if you centered it, you would by definition have some grass on either side of the drive, which was just another thought that we could do in the committee. We could come up. But thanks. Yeah.
Hey, Tom, this is Dan. Really appreciate the research into it, and knowing that we do have properties out there that fit the model of the A, and providing them more opportunity to expand upon it and provide a drive aisle is great. Question I would have is, with the situations that A creates, what were your thoughts on if someone were just to do the drive aisle, but that does not lead back to anything? Because if the car is sitting there on the side, I'm not sure how they would actually work it, but what's the condition of the property on the other side of that fence though?
Yeah, I haven't got to that, but obviously if you had situation A, even if we had a 7-foot driveway with a grass strip in the middle, there's no way they could park there and get out of the car.
Right.
It's literally to allow for access to the backyard where a garage or an apron may be back there, to enter and exit.
It's a great idea, especially for those properties that are limited up front.
Yeah.
Helpful.
And that's the other thing. On some of the larger lot homes, obviously, where you've got 50 feet from the property line to the house or 100 feet, and they put their driveways up closer to the house just for convenience. You've got 50, 80 feet of distance. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about utilizing your property to get to your backyard on a paved drive. That's really what I'm talking about here. Dan, did you want to be on the committee too?
I would love to for design stuff. So yeah, I mean, whatever. If I can check into how many of these conditions apply or kind of what the options are, sure, I'd love to help you.
I appreciate it. And I'm assuming as an architect, you have better drafting tools than my crude thing.
You did a great job, man. We all know exactly what it is. It works great.
Okay. Well, it's like a cartoon almost, but my old drafting programs are on an old Windows 95 computer, which I haven't fired up for years. So I haven't done that. Okay. Anybody else have any comments? All right. Well, then I guess committee of Beth and I'll get together, and Dan, and maybe at some point we could set up a Zoom or something to chat about this some more and talk conceptually, and then at some point come up with some recommendations to bring to planning for review and discussion, and then go from there. If that's okay with you all.
Yeah, that's great, Tom. Once again, I appreciate everything you're doing, and now your committee as well. Procedurally, I don't know where we'll go once you come up with some language, if we have to funnel it through council, because essentially you're talking about a text amendment, but we'll work on the process once we're a little bit deeper into this process.
Okay.
David and I did take a look at the process here. Our zoning code provides a mechanism for a zoning change to originate with Planning Commission. And so Planning Commission could propose a change in the driveway restrictions and then forward it to council. I think there should be some mechanism for council to get a heads up on what's being done, so I'm sure between David and I, we can provide some information.
I'm sure we can work that out very easily. Yeah.
Tom, will get in touch with me if you want to have a brief ad hoc committee meeting, and I'll be happy to set that up and coordinate that with the village and provide any resources.
All right, David, thanks a lot.
Of course.
Well, thanks to you, Tom. That concludes our items for discussion. Is there any other items that needs to be discussed? I'm looking at you, Mayor.
Hearing none, I move we adjourn.
Second.
Is there a second? Motion second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Good night, everyone.
All right.
Good night.
Have a good evening.